Imagine standing in the middle of the Australian outback, surrounded by an endless red desert that stretches to the horizon in every direction. The sun beats down, the air shimmers with heat, and everything feels ancient, silent, and vast. But look closer, because hidden among these rugged landscapes are secrets that have baffled experts for generations. Carved into stone and painted on cave walls are mysterious artworks that tell stories we're only beginning to understand. These aren't just random markings, they're puzzles left behind by indigenous cultures thousands of years ago, waiting for someone to piece together their meaning. And today, we're going to explore 25 of the most puzzling rock art sites in the Outback, each one a window into a world that time almost forgot. What's incredible about these sites isn't just their age or beauty, it's the questions they raise. Who created these images and why? Some depict animals that have been extinct for millennia, others show human-like figures with features that don't match any known tribe, and a few even seem to illustrate events or beliefs that challenge everything we thought we knew about early human history. These artworks are more than art, they're messages from the past etched in stone, and each one holds clues about how people lived, dreamed, and connected with the world around them. As we journey through these sites, you'll feel the same sense of wonder and curiosity that archaeologists experience when they first lay eyes on these enigmas. This isn't just a tour of ancient art, it's an adventure into the unknown. Together, we'll uncover the stories behind these incredible creations, from the Wandjina spirits of the Kimberley to the intricate engravings of Murujuga. We'll explore why some sites remain undated, how changing climates have preserved or threatened these treasures, and what they can teach us about resilience, creativity, and the human spirit. So settle in and get ready to explore the Australian outback like never before. By the end of this video, you'll not only have discovered 25 breathtaking sites, but also gained a deeper appreciation for the mysteries that still lie hidden in plain sight, waiting for their stories to be told. Our journey into the heart of the Outback's mysteries begins in the remote northwestern corner of Australia, in the breathtakingly beautiful and rugged Kimberley region. Here, nestled within countless rock shelters, we find our first and perhaps most perplexing puzzle, the Bradshaw Figures, also known by their indigenous name, Gwion Gwion. These are not your typical rock art depictions. They are astonishingly elegant, almost ethereal, with elongated, graceful human forms that seem to dance and float across the rock faces. Their details are so fine and precise, delicate tassels hanging from their arms and waists, intricate headdresses, and often holding what appear to be boomerangs or other objects, that many have wondered how such sophisticated art could have been created in such an ancient time. And ancient they certainly are. The debate surrounding the age of these figures is a fierce one, a true scientific detective story. For a long time, it was believed they were around 17,000 years old. But newer, more advanced dating techniques, like optically stimulated luminescence, which measures when the sediment covering the art was last exposed to sunlight, suggest they could be far, far older. Some researchers now postulate that these paintings could date back more than 20,000 years, perhaps even approaching 30,000. To put that into perspective, this would mean the artists were painting these delicate figures while much of Europe was still in the grip of the last ice age. This incredible age leads directly to the biggest question: who were the artists? The style is so radically different from the more well-known and common Aboriginal rock art found across Australia. The Gwion Gwion figures are static, detailed, and often depict scenes of ceremony and ritual. Their existence has sparked numerous theories. Some suggest they were created by an earlier, now vanished culture that was later replaced by the ancestors of today's indigenous peoples. Others, and this is a particularly compelling idea, propose that they represent a very specific and highly stylized artistic tradition from within the long and continuous history of Aboriginal culture itself. a specialized art form for depicting certain ancestral beings or stories from the Dreamtime. For the local indigenous communities, these figures are not a mystery left by strangers. They are Gwion Gwion, part of their deep and unbroken cultural heritage. The stories tell of long-beaked birds pecking at the rocks until they bled, creating the paintings with their own blood and feathers. This profound cultural connection reminds us that while we may be focused on scientific dating and artistic analysis, the true meaning of these figures is woven into the living memory and spiritual beliefs of the First Nations people, a meaning that transcends our need for a simple historical timeline. While the Gwion Gwion figures present a puzzle of deep antiquity, a different kind of mystery, one of living power and spiritual reverence, awaits us further north in the Kimberley. Here we encounter the Wandjina, some of the most iconic and spiritually significant rock art figures in all of Australia. These are not delicate, dancing forms, they are powerful, awe-inspiring beings. Imagine a face that fills an entire rock shelter ceiling, large, owl-like eyes that seem to peer into your soul, a face often surrounded by a halo or helmet-like band, and most strikingly, no mouth. Their bodies, when depicted, are often shown with elaborate body paint and are full of a potent, static energy. They are not of this world, and you can feel it. These powerful images are not merely ancient artwork to the Warora, Ungaranian, and Wunumbal people. They are the sacred depictions of the cloud and rain spirits themselves, the supreme creators of the land and all its people. The Wandjina are believed to have emerged from the sky and the sea during the Dreamtime. They shaped the rugged landscape, created the first humans, and established the laws of society. After their work was done, they returned to the spirit world, leaving their images on the cave walls as a conduit for their enduring power. Their lack of a mouth is profoundly significant. It is said that their power is so great that if they had mouths, the constant rain and storms they could summon would never cease, flooding the entire earth. This is not art frozen in the past, it is a living tradition. To ensure the continuation of the seasons and the fertility of the land, the traditional custodians have, for untold generations, undertaken the sacred responsibility of repainting the Wandjina figures. This is not restoration in a Western archaeological sense. It is a vital act of renewal, a ceremony that revitalizes the spirit's power and ensures the life-giving monsoon rains return each year. The repainting is done with immense care and according to strict ritual protocols, often using traditional pigments mixed with water from a sacred source. It is a powerful testament to an unbroken cultural lineage, a direct link between the creative acts of the dreaming and the present day. The stories connected to the Wandjina are as dramatic as the images themselves. Many sites are linked to specific narratives of conflict and consequence. One story tells of a Wandjina who was struck by lightning, the black strokes representing body paint that were placed upon him to heal his wounds. Another recounts how a Wandjina's son was killed by outsiders, and in his grief and anger, the Wandjina brought such a tremendous cyclone and flood that it carved out entire gorges in the landscape as a permanent record of his sorrow. These stories are not separate from the land. They are the lore and the history book of it, written across the cliffs and caves, explaining every feature and governing the relationship between the people, the spirits, and the environment they share. Leaving the powerful, mouthless Wandjina of the Kimberley behind, we travel northeast to Arnhem Land, a vast and culturally rich region where the rock art takes on a completely different energy. Here, the ancient canvases are alive with motion. We've moved from serene, floating figures and imposing creator spirits to scenes of incredible action and vitality. This is the world of the dynamic figures, and they are exactly what their name promises. These artworks burst from the rock faces, capturing a single, fleeting moment of intense activity with a skill that feels startlingly modern. What makes these figures so captivating is their palpable sense of life. Unlike the static, ceremonial poses found elsewhere, the artists of Arnhem Land mastered the depiction of movement. You'll see figures sprinting, their bodies leaning forward as if caught mid-stride. Hunters are shown with arms raised, about to throw a spear with all their might. In some panels, groups of figures appear to be dancing, their limbs bent in rhythmic motion, telling a story of ceremony and celebration. This isn't just a record of what people looked like, it's a record of what they did. It's a snapshot of ancient life in all its vigor, the thrill of the hunt, the intensity of battle, the joy of the dance. Through their art, these ancient storytellers achieved a kind of immortality for their actions, freezing a burst of energy in time for us to witness millennia later. The technology behind this art is just as fascinating as the scenes themselves. These artists were true masters of their craft, working primarily with ochre, a naturally occurring pigment that comes in a stunning palette of earthy tones, vibrant reds and yellows, deep purples and crisp whites. They would mix these powders with water or sometimes with binders like animal fat or tree sap to create a paint that could endure for thousands of years. The application was sophisticated too. Many figures were painted using a technique similar to modern stenciling, where the artist would spray paint from their mouth over a hand or an object placed against the rock, leaving a perfect negative image behind. This method created a powerful, personal connection between the artist and the artwork, a direct physical trace of a person long gone. But the most revolutionary artistic innovation to emerge from Arnhem Land is undoubtedly the X-ray style. This is a tradition that blossomed later, evolving from the dynamic figures, and it represents one of the most unique and insightful art forms in the entire world. Imagine a painting of a barramundi fish or a kangaroo where you can see not only its external form, but also its internal anatomy, its spine, its heart, its stomach, and even the last meal it consumed. This is X-ray art in its most elaborate form. It demonstrates an incredibly intimate and detailed knowledge of the natural world, an understanding that could only come from a people who lived in such a close, dependent relationship with these animals for their survival. This move to painting the inside of a creature reveals a profound shift in thinking. It signifies a deep spiritual belief system where the external form was just one layer of a being's reality. By depicting the internal organs and bones, the artists were illustrating the essence of life itself, the sacred interior that held the spirit and the life force. It suggests a world view where everything is interconnected: the hunter, the hunted, and the land that sustains them both. An X-ray painting of a fish is more than a simple image. It is a meditation on life and sustenance, an acknowledgement of the sacrifice an animal made to feed the community, and a representation of the sacred knowledge passed down through generations about the workings of the world. These artworks are a beautiful, complex blend of natural history, spiritual doctrine, and artistic genius, offering us an unparalleled window into the minds and souls of some of the world's most ancient continuous cultures. Now, we venture away from the rich, figurative art of the northern coastlines and journey deep into the heart of the continent, into the vast, arid expanse of Central Australia. Here, the rock art takes on a completely different character. Gone are the elaborate human forms and detailed animal depictions. Instead, we find ourselves confronted by an art of profound abstraction, the enigmatic Panaramitee style. This is an art not of figures but of forms, not of scenes but of symbols, spread across an enormous area from South Australia to Queensland and beyond. These ancient engravings present a puzzle that is deceptively simple on the surface but incredibly complex underneath. The motifs of the Panaramitee style are both repetitive and mesmerizing. Imagine a vast, open rock surface smoothed by millennia of wind and sun. Carved into this canvas are thousands upon thousands of precisely pecked indentations forming a limited set of patterns. You'll see countless circles, some solitary, others clustered together like bubbles. There are radiating lines, mazes, and spirals that seem to pull the eye inward. Most famously, there are animal tracks, the unmistakable prints of emus, kangaroos, and other creatures, etched into the stone with an observant eye for detail. It's a visual language of dots and dashes, curves and lines, but one whose grammar and vocabulary we are still struggling to learn. This is where the true mystery lies. The figurative art of Arnhem Land or the Kimberley, while spiritually complex, gives us clear subjects. We can see the hunters, the animals, the spirits. But with the Panaramitee style, we are left with pure symbol. What do these circles and tracks truly represent? One compelling theory suggests these engravings functioned as a kind of ancient cartography, a map etched in stone. In the immense and often featureless desert, these marked sites could have served as critical navigational aids for nomadic tribes. A series of circles might indicate a chain of waterholes vital for survival. A collection of animal tracks could point the way to a known hunting ground or signify the presence of a particular species in the area. Another fascinating idea posits that these sites were not just maps but storybooks. Each symbol could be a word in a larger narrative, a component of a Dreamtime story told not with pictures of the beings themselves, but with the signs they left behind. The track of a kangaroo might not just represent the animal, but could invoke the entire story of a specific ancestral kangaroo being, its journey, its trials, and its lessons. A spiral could chart the path of a creator serpent across the land, while a series of lines might mark the boundaries of a sacred territory. The repetition of motifs across vast distances could indicate that this was a shared symbolic language, understood by different groups across the interior, a common code that facilitated trade, communication, and the sharing of cultural knowledge along ancient songlines. The sheer age of these engravings adds another layer of profundity to the mystery. Some researchers estimate that the Panaramitee tradition could be exceedingly ancient, perhaps dating back more than 40,000 years. This places its origins among the very first artistic expressions on the Australian continent. To stand before these patterns is to stand before some of the earliest attempts by humans in Australia to make their mark, to encode meaning, and to leave a permanent record of their presence in a challenging and magnificent landscape. They represent a monumental intellectual achievement, the development of a symbolic system that would form the foundation for storytelling and cultural memory for thousands of generations to come. Leaving behind the sprawling symbolic language of the Panaramitee, we now find ourselves at one of the most visually striking and spiritually significant sites in the entire Outback, the Devil's Marbles, or Kalu Kalu as it is known to the traditional Aboriginal custodians. This incredible landscape is a spectacle in itself, a vast field of gigantic, perfectly rounded granite boulders piled precariously upon one another, looking as if they were dropped by some mythological giant. They glow with an intense, fiery red in the light of the rising and setting sun, a sight that feels both magical and deeply sacred. But nestled among these monumental natural sculptures, if you look closely, is a far more intimate and human mystery. The presence of countless small, perfectly circular hollows pecked into the rock surfaces. These are cupules, and their quiet presence at Kalu Kalu poses a question that echoes across countless ancient sites around the world. Why were they made? A cupule might seem, at first glance, to be the simplest and most humble form of rock art. It lacks the narrative drama of a dynamic figure or the spiritual power of a Wandjina. It is, quite literally, just a hole in a rock, but their sheer abundance and the evident effort required to create them, each one painstakingly pecked into the hard granite over hours with a stone tool, suggests a significance that far outweighs their simple appearance. They are not random, they are deliberate, and they are everywhere. At Kalu Kalu, you'll find them on the surfaces of the larger boulders, sometimes isolated, other times clustered in groups, arranged in lines, or even covering entire sections of rock. This patterning is a clear signal that we are not looking at accidental markings or natural erosion, but at intentional human behavior, a purposeful act repeated over and over again across generations. The theories attempting to explain this purpose are as varied as the patterns the cupules form. one of the most persistent ideas connects them to rituals and spiritual beliefs. In many cultures worldwide, the act of creating a cupule is intimately tied to concepts of fertility and life force. The rhythmic, repetitive action of pecking the stone is seen as a symbolic act of creation itself. For some sites, it's believed these hollows were made by women hoping to conceive, with the act of carving into the body of the earth symbolically inviting fertility into their own. The resulting hollows, which often collect rainwater, could then be seen as reservoirs of this potent life-giving energy. At a place as spiritually charged as Kalu Kalu, a site central to the dreaming stories of the Aliawa people, it is easy to imagine these small depressions serving as focal points for ceremony, prayer, and connection to ancestral power. On the other hand, a more practical explanation points to their use in food preparation. This is the so-called nutting stone or grinding stone theory. A cluster of cupules on a flat rock surface could have served as a primitive mortar, where hard seeds, nuts, or ochre pigments were placed to be crushed with a smaller hand-held stone, the pestle. The smooth, worn interiors of many older cupules would support this utilitarian function. However, this theory often struggles to explain cupules found on vertical or sharply sloping rock faces, surfaces that would be utterly impractical for grinding anything. This suggests that while some cupules may have had a practical use, many others certainly did not, pointing to a complex mix of motivations behind their creation. Perhaps the most intriguing and challenging aspect of the cupules at Kalu Kalu, and indeed everywhere, is the near impossibility of dating them accurately. Unlike painted art where organic material in the pigment can sometimes be carbon dated, or engravings that can be analyzed through micro-erosion techniques, cupules offer almost nothing for science to grasp. They are a product of subtraction rock that has been removed. The only potential method involves dating the very rock itself, trying to determine when the fresh, unweathered interior of the stone was first exposed by the artist's tool. This is an incredibly difficult and often unreliable process. As a result, the cupules at Kalu Kalu could be a few hundred years old, or they could be 10,000 years old. They could represent a single period of activity or a tradition that was carried out intermittently over millennia, with each generation adding their own marks to those of their ancestors, creating a timeless, layered puzzle on the sacred stone. This profound ambiguity means we are left to interpret their purpose through the lens of culture and anthropology, listening to the stories of the traditional owners and reading the subtle language of their patterns, rather than relying on a scientific timestamp to tell us their story. Leaving the central deserts and their ancient symbolic language behind, we now travel to the eastern coast, to a landscape that stands in stark contrast to the remote outback. Here, amidst the sprawling suburbs of modern Sydney, lies another layer of Australia's deep history. The Hawkesbury River region, a lush network of watercourses and sheltered sandstone valleys, is home to one of the most extensive and impressive collections of rock engravings anywhere on the continent. This art offers a profoundly different perspective, showcasing the rich cultural world of the Darug people, the traditional custodians of this land, right on the doorstep of a bustling 21st century metropolis. The scale and artistry of these engravings are immediately striking. Unlike the painted shelters of the north or the small cupules of the center, the Hawkesbury sites feature enormous figures pecked directly into the horizontally bedded sandstone platforms that characterize the area. We are not looking at small, subtle markings, but at monumental art. It is common to find life-sized or even larger-than-life depictions of the animals that were central to the Darug people's world. Massive kangaroos, their powerful tails curved behind them, seem to leap across the rock. Schools of fish, like the prized mullet, swim in perpetual motion. Echidnas, lizards, and powerful whales are all rendered with an observant eye for anatomical detail, their forms perfectly adapted to the contours of the rock surface. Interspersed with these animal figures are equally impressive engravings of humans and spiritual beings. Some human forms are shown in dynamic poses, holding weapons or appearing to dance. Others are more enigmatic, like the distinctive ritual figures known as culture heroes, often identified by their elaborate headdresses and the objects they carry. Most awe-inspiring are the towering ancestral beings, some stretching over 10 meters in length. These colossal figures, with their often abstract and geometric internal patterns, are believed to represent powerful creator entities from the dreaming, their presence in the rock a permanent testament to the sacred origins of the Darug world. A single site might tell a complex story, with a large ancestral figure overlooking a scene of humans hunting kangaroos, all connected by meandering lines that could represent song lines or spiritual pathways across the country. The technique used to create these enduring masterpieces demonstrates remarkable skill and patience. The artists used a method known as pecking, where a hard stone tool, like a pointed piece of quartzite, was struck repeatedly with a hammerstone to bruise and fracture the relatively soft sandstone surface. This wasn't a quick process. Creating a large, deep, and clear figure required countless precise strikes. For finer details and to smooth the outlines, they would then abrade the pecked area using a stone tool, essentially sanding it down to create a continuous groove. The result is a figure that stands out clearly, its weathered, darker grooves contrasting against the lighter rock, especially during the low light of sunrise or sunset when the shadows deepen and the ancient images seem to awaken. These engravings were far more than simple decorations. They were a fundamental part of Darug life, lore, and learning. They functioned as an open-air library and a community classroom. For the initiated, the sites encoded vital knowledge. They marked clan territories, indicated important resource locations like fishing grounds, and illustrated practical knowledge about animal behavior. For everyone, they served as a visual record of dreaming stories, reinforcing the laws given by the ancestral beings and reminding people of their responsibilities to the land and to each other. It is believed that many sites were used for initiation ceremonies, where young people would be brought to learn the deeper meanings behind the images, connecting them to their culture and their country in the most profound way possible. Tragically, this incredible repository of history now faces an existential threat from the very expansion it once predated. Urban development, bushrock removal, and quarrying have already destroyed countless engraving sites entirely. For those that remain, the dangers are more insidious. Pollution and acid rain slowly eat away at the sandstone. Stormwater runoff from paved areas erodes the platforms and can deposit silt that obscures the engravings. Perhaps most disheartening is the damage caused by a simple lack of awareness. Well-intentioned but careless visitors walking across the fragile platforms wear down the grooves, while graffiti and vandalism directly assault these irreplaceable cultural treasures. Each lost line is a sentence erased from a story thousands of years in the making, a silent tragedy unfolding in plain sight. As we move from the monumental galleries of the Hawkesbury to the opposite side of the continent, we arrive at a site of truly global significance, a place that holds not just stories, but an entire ancient ecosystem frozen in stone. Welcome to the Burrup Peninsula, known as Murujuga to its traditional custodians, the Ngaluma people. This rugged, arid landscape in Western Australia's Pilbara region is home to the largest and one of the oldest collections of rock art on Earth. We are talking about more than 1 million individual engravings spread across this rocky archipelago. But it's not the staggering quantity that makes Murujuga so profoundly puzzling. It's the specific, haunting images it contains, a veritable portrait gallery of creatures that have vanished from the world. The most famous and most poignant of these images is the thylacine, more commonly known as the Tasmanian tiger. To see its distinctive striped form and rigid, dog-like posture pecked into the rock here is nothing short of breathtaking. The last known thylacine died in a Tasmanian zoo in 1936, a tragic symbol of modern extinction. Yet the engravings at Murujuga prove this enigmatic marsupial predator once thrived across the entire Australian mainland. Scientists estimate that thylacines went extinct on the mainland around 3,000 years ago, likely due to competition with humans and the introduced dingo. This means the artists who captured their likeness were working from real-life observation. These aren't mythical creatures, they are accurate, detailed portraits of animals the artists lived alongside, hunted, and undoubtedly held in deep respect. Each thylacine engraving is a precise biological record, a fossil drawn in stone that confirms the animal's presence and provides invaluable data on its physical form and distribution long before European naturalists ever arrived. But the thylacine is just the headliner in a much larger cast of extinct characters. The rocks of Murujuga are also populated by images of other animals that have long since disappeared from this region or from the planet entirely. There are detailed engravings of the now extinct fat-tailed kangaroo, a species we only know about from fossilized bones. You can find depictions of the emu, a bird that can no longer be found anywhere in the arid Pilbara, telling us the climate here was once far wetter and more hospitable to such life. This collection of art is in effect a massive scientific dataset. It acts as a direct window into the Pleistocene and early Holocene epochs, showing us exactly which species were sharing the landscape with humans and how that landscape itself has dramatically transformed over thousands of years. The artists were, perhaps unknowingly, acting as the world's first natural historians, meticulously documenting the fauna of their time. This leads to one of the most pressing modern puzzles surrounding Murujuga, the question of preservation. The rock art here has survived for an almost incomprehensible length of time. Some engravings are believed to be up to 40,000 years old, making them contemporaries of the famous cave art in Europe. They have endured through ice ages and sea level rises, but now they face a threat unlike any other: industrial pollution. The Burrup Peninsula is also home to one of the country's largest concentrations of natural gas processing and fertilizer production. These industries emit significant amounts of nitrogen oxides and sulfur dioxide into the air. When these compounds mix with moisture, they form acidic compounds that fall as acid rain or settle as acidic dew on the rock surfaces. This acidic deposition attacks the rock's patina, a hard, dark, protective coating known as desert varnish that forms naturally over millennia. This varnish is what gives the ancient pecked grooves their dark color, making them stand out clearly against the lighter, unmarked rock. As the acid eats away at this varnish, the engravings begin to fade, becoming less distinct and eventually disappearing entirely. It's a slow-moving crisis, a silent fading that is erasing this priceless archive day by day. The debate over how to protect Murujuga is fierce and complex, pitting undeniable economic interests against the preservation of a site that is both a sacred cultural heart for the Ngarluma people and a monument of unparalleled importance to all of human history. The puzzle is not just about saving art, it's about balancing the needs of the present against our duty to safeguard the memory of the ancient past for all future generations. Far to the northeast, in the rugged, tropical reaches of Queensland's Cape York Peninsula, the rock art takes a turn into the realm of the mystical and the macabre. This is not an art of simple record-keeping or ancestral homage. It is an art of power, a visual language of sorcery and spiritual influence that was both revered and feared. The galleries here, hidden in secluded rock shelters, are filled with scenes that feel intensely ritualistic, portraying a world where the boundaries between the human and the spirit realms were dangerously thin, and where art was not merely representational but was believed to be inherently active and potent. The figures that dominate these sites are unlike any we've encountered so far. They are often strange composite beings, part human, part animal, part something entirely other. You might see a figure with the head of a crocodile and the body of a man, or a human form with grotesquely elongated limbs and splayed fingers, seemingly caught in a contorted dance. Many are depicted with lines of dots or dashes streaming from their bodies or mouths, a convention believed to represent the projection of magical power, sickness, or a spiritual essence. These are not portraits of beings from the everyday world. They are illustrations of quinkans and other mythical sorcerers and spirits, entities known for their capricious nature and their ability to both help and harm humans. This art was deeply functional, serving as a critical tool in the spiritual and social practices of the region's indigenous peoples. It was central to the practice of magic, particularly what anthropologists have termed increased rituals and sorcery. Certain paintings were believed to have a direct, tangible effect on the world. An image of a kangaroo, for instance, might be repainted not just as an act of respect, but as a ceremonial act to ensure the actual kangaroo population would thrive, guaranteeing a successful hunt. Conversely, other art was explicitly linked to what we would call black magic. It was believed a sorcerer could project a harmful spirit or a pointing bone spell directly through a painting, using the image as a conduit to inflict illness or misfortune upon a chosen victim from a great distance. This power gave the rock art a profound role in community governance and law enforcement. In a society without a formal police force or judiciary, the fear of sorcery acted as a powerful social regulator. The knowledge that certain elders or clever men possessed the ability to use these paintings to punish wrongdoers served as a potent deterrent against breaking tribal law, stealing, or causing social disharmony. The sites themselves were often treated with extreme caution. They were not places for the uninitiated or the casual visitor. Approaching a sorcery site without the proper knowledge or authority was considered incredibly dangerous, as one might accidentally activate a spell or incur the wrath of the spirit depicted there. The oral traditions surrounding these paintings are filled with eerie and chilling stories that have been passed down for generations, underscoring their lasting power in the cultural memory. One common tale warns of a powerful sorcery image that depicts a spirit holding a bundle of sticks. It is said that if an unauthorized person were to accidentally count the number of sticks in the bundle, they would unknowingly count out the remaining days of their own life. Other stories tell of specific, malevolent Quincan spirits that are captured within the rock itself, their power contained by the painting but still palpable. These narratives were not mere ghost stories told for entertainment. They were serious cautionary tales that enforced respect for cultural protocols and protected these powerful and dangerous places from accidental desecration, ensuring that this unsettling, potent art would continue to hold its power over the human imagination for centuries to come. The vibrant, life-filled galleries of Arnhem Land hold yet another captivating mystery, one that takes flight high on the rock shelters of what is now Decode National Park. At the renowned Yuba art site, amidst the dynamic figures and majestic X-ray art, a specific and beautifully rendered group of figures commands attention: the enigmatic bird paintings. These are not simple, generic outlines. They are detailed, often brilliantly colored portraits of specific avian species, captured with an ornithologist's precision and an artist's flair. The prominence of these birds in the rock art suggests they were far more than just another food source. They held a deeper, more complex significance for the Bininj people, the traditional custodians of this ancient land. Why are certain species depicted so frequently and with such care? Two compelling, interwoven explanations emerge from the landscape itself. The first is deeply tied to the dramatic seasonal rhythms that govern life in Decode. The region experiences two utterly distinct seasons: the dry season with its clear skies and shrinking waterholes, and the wet season when monsoon rains flood the plains, creating a vast, lush wetland. The arrival and departure of specific bird species are the most reliable and visible heralds of these profound seasonal shifts. A beautifully painted magpie goose or manamanak is more than a beautiful image, it is a seasonal calendar. Its depiction likely signaled the arrival of the wet season, when vast flocks would descend on the newly flooded plains. Similarly, the jabiru, a majestic stork, is a powerful symbol of the wetlands. Its presence in art could serve as a reminder of the abundance brought by the rains and the impending need to prepare for the changes in hunting and gathering strategies that each season demanded. This art, therefore, functioned as an ecological guidebook, embedding crucial environmental knowledge into the very cultural fabric of the community. The second reason delves into the spiritual realm of totemic beliefs. In Aboriginal cosmology, people are intrinsically linked to a specific totem, often an animal or plant, through their clan and kinship lines. This totem is not a mascot, it is a spiritual ancestor, a part of one's very identity. It is highly probable that many of these exquisitely detailed bird paintings represent the totems of specific families or clans. Painting your totem ancestor onto the rock was a powerful act of affirmation, a way of stating your connection to that place, your lineage, and your responsibilities towards that species. It was an act of reverence and respect, ensuring the continuity of both the natural species and the people connected to it. A painting of a white-throated grasswren or a rainbow bee-eater might mark the territory of a particular clan and tell the story of their ancestral journey, their songline, forever linking their identity to the flight of a specific bird. The technical mastery behind these paintings is as astonishing as their symbolic meaning. The artists of Yuba were true masters of color and composition. They created a vibrant palette from the very earth around them. Red and yellow came from ochre, iron-rich clay that was mined, baked to intensify its color, and then ground into a fine powder. White was derived from pipe clay or kaolin, and black from charcoal or manganese oxide. These powders were mixed with binders like water, animal fat, or even the sticky sap of orchid plants to create a paint that possessed both brilliant color and incredible longevity. The application was sophisticated, often involving fine brushes made from chewed sticks, human hair, or feathers. Some bird figures are outlined with remarkable precision, while others are filled in with solid blocks of color or intricate cross-hatching, a technique that also held sacred significance in denoting a person's spiritual essence or clan affiliations. This deliberate choice of materials and methods ensured that these delicate portraits of feathers and flight would endure for thousands of years, speaking powerfully across the millennia of a people's deep observation and spiritual connection to the winged inhabitants of their world. Moving from the powerful bird totems of the north, we encounter perhaps the most profound and widespread figure in all of Australian rock art, the great serpents. These are not mere snakes, they are monumental beings, colossal forces of nature given form, whose immense bodies are carved and painted across the continent. From the tropical north to the arid center, these giant serpent representations form a common thread in the tapestry of Aboriginal belief, a visual testament to a shared cosmology that speaks of creation, destruction, and the very shape of the land beneath our feet. The most famous of these beings is the rainbow serpent, known by many different names to different language groups: Kunmanga in Arnhem Land, Ungud in the Kimberley, or Wolunqua in the Central Deserts. While the names and specific stories vary, its fundamental role remains constant. It is the premier creator being. In the Dreamtime, this colossal serpent awoke from its slumber beneath the earth and began its epic journey across the flat, featureless world. As it moved, its powerful body carved out the contours of the landscape, pushing up mountain ranges, gouging deep riverbeds and gorges, and creating waterholes where it stopped to rest. The art depicting this being is as varied as the landscapes it is said to have formed. In some regions, it is painted as a massive, python-like creature, often adorned with intricate patterns or a crest along its back. In others, especially in the X-ray style of Arnhem Land, we see its internal structure, its spine and organs, emphasizing its life force and power. Some representations are more abstract, a long, sinuous line meandering across a rock face, perhaps encircling other figures or water sources, symbolically representing its generative and protective embrace. The connection between these giant serpents and water is absolutely fundamental and explains their enduring importance. In a country as prone to drought as Australia, water is life itself. The rainbow serpent is not just associated with water, it is its ultimate custodian and the source of all fresh water. It is believed to reside in the deepest, most permanent waterholes, and its mood directly influences the water's availability. A contented serpent ensures that springs flow and rains come in season. However, if it is angered by disrespectful behavior or the breaking of tribal law, it can withhold the water, causing drought, or unleash its fury in the form of devastating storms and floods. This belief system embedded a powerful ecological and social code. It mandated respect for water sources, prohibiting pollution or overuse, and governed community behavior through the very real fear of supernatural retribution. A painting of the serpent near a waterhole was not just a story, it was a warning, a law, and a prayer all in one. Beyond creation and sustenance, the serpent also embodies a potent duality. It is both giver of life and a destructive power. Many stories recount the rainbow serpent's creative journey, but they are often balanced with narratives of its wrath. Some rock art scenes appear to depict these dramatic moments. A panel might show the serpent consuming human figures, representing stories of ancient people who were swallowed for their transgressions. Other sites show the serpent confronting or being confronted by other ancestral beings, their battles shaping the local topography. A cliff face might represent the serpent's frozen body, a mountain range its coiled form. This duality makes the serpent a complete cosmological figure. It explains not only how the world was made, but also the existence of natural disasters, death, and the consequences of violating the natural order. It is a reminder that the creative force of the universe is also a corrective one, immense and unpredictable. The artistic scale used to represent these beings is deliberately awe-inspiring, designed to evoke a sense of reverence and wonder. At the Gwion rock art site in New South Wales, a massive serpentine figure stretches for an astonishing 20 meters along a sandstone overhang. To stand before it is to feel small, to physically comprehend the immense power of the being it represents. This intentional monumentality serves a clear purpose. It makes the spiritual tangible. The art itself becomes a sacred site, a place where the presence of the Creator is felt most strongly. It is a focal point for ceremony where songs and stories are performed to honor the serpent and ensure the continued balance of the world. These sites are not museums of a forgotten past. They are active places of worship where the dreaming continues to unfold and where the power of the ancestral beings is as real today as it was when the first strokes of ochre were applied to the rock, connecting the people irrevocably to the land and the timeless stories that formed it. While the giant serpents speak of cosmic forces and ancestral power, the rock art of the Kimberley also preserves something far more intimate and human, the direct physical presence of an individual frozen in time. In countless rock shelters throughout the region, we find a different kind of art, not a painting of something, but the ghostly imprint of someone. These are the hand stencils, and they form one of the most personal and moving connections we have to the people of the deep past. The technique for creating them was simple yet brilliant. An artist would mix ochre pigment with water in their mouth, place their hand flat against the rock wall, and then blow the liquid spray directly over and around it. When the hand was pulled away, it left behind a perfect negative silhouette, a personal signature in vibrant red or mulberry purple that has endured for thousands of years. This act feels almost universal, an impulse we can recognize even today. But in the context of these ancient cultures, a hand stencil was far more than a casual "I was here." It was a profound declaration of identity and connection. For the individual, placing your hand on the rock and leaving its mark could signify a personal milestone, an adolescent's initiation into adulthood, a hunter's first major kill, or a person's claim to a particular dream or story associated with that site. It was a way of physically anchoring one's spirit and story to a specific place in the landscape, a permanent record of a significant moment in a life. The very act of creation, blowing the pigment from one's own mouth, added a layer of intimacy, as if a part of the person's breath or essence was literally being fused with the stone itself. On a communal level, a wall covered in hand stencils tells a powerful story of family and clan. You can often find panels featuring large and small stencils together, likely representing entire family groups, parents and children, all affirming their collective presence and belonging to that country. In this way, these sites became living archives of a community's lineage and connection to place, a multi-generational guestbook that stretched back into the deep past. For a young person, seeing the stencil of a grandparent or a legendary ancestor on the rock would have been a potent lesson in their own history and identity, a tangible link to those who had walked the same land before them. The cumulative effect is one of shared ownership and shared story, a visual representation of the deep and enduring bond between the people and their land. Yet among these thousands of perfect handprints, we find a number of stencils that are deeply puzzling, and to modern eyes perhaps even unsettling. These are the stencils with missing fingers. Some show a hand lacking 1 or 2 digits, while others are missing all fingers entirely, leaving behind only the stark, blunt outline of a palm. The immediate, instinctual modern interpretation might leap to a grim explanation: ritual mutilation, perhaps as a form of punishment or mourning. However, anthropological research and the knowledge of indigenous elders suggest a far more complex and varied set of reasons behind these mysterious absences. One of the most widely accepted explanations points to culturally significant mourning practices. In some Aboriginal groups, particularly in the northern regions, it was a custom upon the death of a close family member for a mourner to have a joint of one of their own fingers ritually removed. This act was a powerful external symbol of internal grief and loss, a permanent physical testament to the pain of bereavement and the depth of one's connection to the departed. A hand stencil missing a finger, therefore, might not be a record of punishment but a sacred and sad memorial, a person documenting their own sacrifice and their love for someone they had lost. Other possibilities are more practical, yet no less significant. In a harsh environment where hunting, tool-making, and gathering were daily necessities, serious injuries were a common part of life. A finger could be lost in a fight, crushed while working with stone, or severed in a hunting accident. Creating a stencil of such a wounded hand could have been a way of marking survival, a badge of honor showing one's resilience and continued place within the community despite a debilitating injury. There is also evidence to suggest that some groups used finger positions as a form of sign language or symbolic communication. It is possible that a stencil showing a curled or missing finger was not depicting a physical absence at all, but was instead representing a specific hand sign, a symbolic gesture meaningful only to those who knew its code, telling a story or claiming a specific identity that we can no longer decipher. These silent, incomplete hands remind us that while the stencils offer a direct touch from the past, the full stories behind them often remain just beyond our grasp, inviting our wonder and respect for the complex lives they represent. While the dynamic figures of Arnhem Land captured the vibrant energy of life, a later artistic evolution in the same region produced a style so unique and insightful that it stands alone in the entire world: the breathtaking X-ray art of Western Arnhem Land. This is not merely a different way of painting. It represents a profound shift in perception, a deep desire to see beyond the surface and depict the very essence of a living being. Imagine a magnificent barramundi fish perfectly outlined on a rock shelter wall. but instead of just seeing its scaly exterior, your gaze travels inward, revealing a detailed spine, a heart, a stomach, and even the small fish it had for its last meal. This is the magic of X-ray art, a window into the sacred interior of life itself. The technical skill required to execute this art form is nothing short of masterful. The artists were not just hunters, they were keen naturalists and brilliant anatomists with an intimate, hands-on knowledge of the creatures they depicted. Through generations of butchering game, they had memorized the precise placement of every major bone, organ, and ligament. This knowledge was then translated onto the rock with incredible precision using fine brushes made from chewed sticks, human hair, or feathers. They worked with a rich palette of ochres, from deep reds and yellows to stark whites and blacks, often using the natural contours of the rock wall to give their subjects a sense of volume and presence. The result is a stunning fusion of artistic beauty and scientific accuracy, a biological illustration that predates European anatomical studies by thousands of years. But to view this art solely as an early form of biological drawing is to miss its deeper spiritual significance entirely. For the Bininj people, depicting the internal anatomy was about much more than showcasing knowledge. It was about representing the life force, the sacred spirit that animates all living things. In their worldview, the external form was just one layer of reality. By painting the bones and organs, the artists were making the invisible visible. They were illustrating the inner power of an animal, its essential nature, and its connection to the ancestral realm of the dreaming. An X-ray painting of a kangaroo isn't just a picture of food. It is a representation of the kangaroo ancestor's spirit, an acknowledgement of its sacrifice, and a meditation on the cycle of life that connects the hunter, the hunted, and the land that sustains them both. This style, therefore, serves as a powerful bridge between the physical and spiritual worlds. It demonstrates a holistic understanding that everything has an outside and an inside, a body and a spirit. This art was a way to honor and understand the true essence of the animals that were central to survival. It transformed the act of hunting from a simple procurement of food into a spiritual exchange, a relationship built on respect and deep knowledge. The X-ray galleries of Western Arnhem Land are more than ancient art. They are a philosophical statement etched in stone, offering us an unparalleled window into a world view where science and spirituality were not separate disciplines, but intertwined aspects of a single, unified understanding of a living, breathing universe. Our journey now takes us far to the south, to the lush, forested mountain ranges of Victoria, a world away from the sun-bleached deserts of the center and the tropical wetlands of the north. Here, in the dramatic sandstone peaks of the Grampians, known as Gariwerd to the Jabwurrung and Jadwajoli people, we find a rock art tradition that is both incredibly rare and deeply significant. The art of Gariwerd represents one of the most extensive and important collections in all of southeastern Australia, a region where such surviving ancient art is exceptionally uncommon due to the damp climate and different historical pressures. These galleries offer a precious and fragile window into the cultural world of the peoples of this temperate zone, presenting a distinct set of images and a unique set of puzzles for us to unravel. The subjects depicted in the Gariwerd shelters provide a fascinating contrast to the art we've seen elsewhere. While you will find the familiar tracks of kangaroos and emus, the galleries are dominated by a powerful and recurring motif, the human form. But these are not the dynamic hunters of Arnhem Land or the elegant Gwion Gwion figures. The human representations here are often solid, schematic, and strikingly graphic. Many are painted in a vibrant red ochre with sturdy, column-like legs and arms and featureless, rounded heads. A particularly distinctive and enigmatic design found here is the diamond-shaped motif, a series of interconnected lines forming a geometric pattern that may represent a net or a grid, though its true meaning remains one of the area's many mysteries. These images feel intentional and potent, less about capturing a moment of action and more about asserting a powerful, permanent presence within the landscape. Interpreting this art, however, is fraught with immense challenge. The cool, wet climate of southern Victoria has not been kind to these ancient paintings. Unlike the arid north, where pigments can last for millennia in dry shelters, the constant humidity here has caused significant fading and damage. Many figures are now mere ghosts on the rock, their outlines so faint they can only be seen under the perfect light conditions or with the aid of modern digital enhancement techniques. This environmental wear and tear means that countless details have been lost forever, making it incredibly difficult to discern fine features, stylistic variations, or the sequence in which paintings were layered over time. Each faded line is a lost word in an ancient story, forcing researchers and traditional custodians to piece together meaning from fragments and whispers. Yet, the most vital key to understanding this art does not lie in scientific analysis alone, but in the living memory and enduring stories of the Djab Wurrung and Djab Wurrung people. For them, Gariwerd is not a mere mountain range. It is the very embodiment of the dreaming, a creation landscape shaped by ancestral beings. The rock art sites are not separate from these stories. They are the illustrations within that sacred text. A particular grouping of human figures might depict a specific ceremony led by an ancestral hero. A series of lines could chart the path of Bram Bram, Bolt, the creator spirit who threw his sword to form the rugged peaks of the mountains. Every painting, no matter how faded, is a chapter in the epic history of how the world and its laws came to be, directly connecting the people to the spiritual origins of their country. This profound cultural connection makes the modern preservation efforts in Gariwerd not just an archaeological concern, but a race against time to protect a living cultural heritage. The threats are multifaceted and relentless. Beyond natural weathering, the art is vulnerable to damage from bushfires, which can crack the sandstone and expose the fragile pigments to further erosion. The unintended consequences of tourism, such as algae growth promoted by the moisture from human breath or the oils from touching hands, also pose a significant risk. In response, a collaborative effort is underway between Parks Victoria, archaeologists, and the traditional owner communities. This involves carefully monitoring the site's condition, installing boardwalks and viewing platforms to keep visitors at a safe distance, and using non-invasive technologies like 3D laser scanning to create permanent digital records of the art in its current state. Most importantly, the Djab Wurrung and Djab Wurrung people are leading this charge, sharing their knowledge to ensure the stories behind the paintings are not lost, and guiding the management of their country so that these irreplaceable windows to the past can continue to speak to future generations. Moving from the lush forests of Gariwerd, we now travel deep into the heart of the continent, to a place where the night sky is not a backdrop but a central character in the story of the land. In the vast, open deserts of Central Australia, the heavens are a breathtakingly clear and dominant presence, a brilliant tapestry of stars undimmed by city lights. Here, the ancient rock art reveals a dimension of Aboriginal knowledge that is both profoundly sophisticated and deeply spiritual, a complex understanding of astronomy. Scattered across this arid landscape are sites that appear to be more than just galleries. They are possibly ancient observatories where art, celestial patterns, and the very rock itself intertwine to track the relentless, sacred cycles of time. This is not a simple connection. We are not just looking for paintings of stars or moons, though those certainly exist. The true puzzle lies in the intentional placement of the art itself and its relationship to the sun, moon, and stars. At certain key sites, researchers and Aboriginal knowledge holders have observed a remarkable phenomenon. A specific rock engraving, perhaps a circle or a particular pattern, might be perfectly illuminated by a single shaft of sunlight only on the day of the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. At another site, a painted figure might fall into complete shadow for a brief period during the winter solstice. These are not coincidences. They are believed to be deliberate alignments, engineered by the artists to use the moving light as a celestial clock, marking the most critical turning points of the annual cycle with dramatic, predictable precision. The purpose of this astronomical knowledge was intensely practical, a matter of survival in an often harsh and unpredictable environment. The changing position of the sun and stars directly dictated the rhythm of life. The heliacal rising of a particular star cluster, its first appearance in the dawn sky after a period of invisibility, might signal the arrival of winter rains or the time when a certain plant would come into fruit. The solstices marked the extreme points of the sun's journey, indicating the beginning of the hottest, driest part of the year or the return of the cooler months. By encoding this information into the landscape through art and alignment, communities could precisely plan their movements. They knew when to gather at a certain waterhole for ceremonies, when to move to the coast to harvest shellfish, or when to head inland for the ripening of bush tomatoes. This rock art calendar was their agricultural almanac, their meteorological guide, and their societal planner, all fused into one. But to view this system as merely a practical calendar is to overlook its deeper spiritual significance. In the Aboriginal worldview, there is no separation between the sky and the earth. The constellations are not just random patterns of light. They are ancestral beings, animals, and characters from the dreaming who exist in the sky world. The story of the Seven Sisters, a cluster of stars known to Europeans as the Pleiades, is one of the most widespread and important dreaming narratives across Australia. Their journey across the night sky is mirrored in songlines that cross the continent below. Therefore, a rock art site that tracks the movement of the Seven Sisters is not just marking a date, it is participating in the story itself. It is a sacred site where the earthly and celestial realms meet, where the people can actively engage with the ancestral narrative as it unfolds above them in real time. The art becomes a permanent, earthly anchor point for a celestial event, grounding the cosmic story in a specific place and reinforcing the inseparable connection between the people, their land, and their sky. Decoding these ancient astronomical connections is a painstaking and collaborative effort, one that beautifully marries cutting-edge technology with the world's oldest living cultures. Archaeoastronomers use software to model the precise movement of the sun thousands of years in the past, determining if an alignment observed today would have held true when the art was first created. They employ laser scanning and 3D mapping to understand the exact orientation of rock surfaces. However, the most crucial component is the knowledge held by Aboriginal elders. Their oral traditions often contain detailed information about particular stars, their stories, and their seasonal associations. An elder might point to a specific painting and explain that it is not a kangaroo, but represents a dark patch in the Milky Way, and celestial emu whose position in the sky indicates the breeding season of its earthly counterpart. This partnership between empirical science and cultural memory is the key to truly understanding these sites, revealing an intellectual tradition that observed the cosmos with a precision and purpose we are only beginning to fully appreciate. Deep within the sun-scorched, iron-red heart of Western Australia's Pilbara region, amidst a landscape of ancient gorges and vast mineral wealth, we encounter one of the most awe-inspiring and humbling forms of rock art on the entire continent, the giant faces. These are not the delicate, life-sized figures we've seen elsewhere. These are monumental visages, some measuring several meters across, carved with immense purpose into the unforgiving hardness of the rock. To stand before one is an overwhelming experience. You are in the presence of a gaze that has watched over this land for millennia, a silent, powerful countenance whose meaning and origin stir both deep reverence and profound mystery. The sheer scale of these works immediately sets them apart. We are talking about faces that can tower over a human being, their features etched on a grand, almost architectural scale. They are typically pecked into the vertical surfaces of large boulders or cliff faces, their outlines formed by deeply incised grooves that have weathered over time to a dark, majestic patina. The features are often stark and geometric: broad, straight noses, large, oval or circular eyes that seem to stare into the distance, and sometimes suggestions of a mouth or headdress. There is a powerful simplicity to their design, an abstraction that makes them feel both ancient and timeless, as if they represent archetypes rather than individuals. The effort required to create just one of these giant faces is almost unimaginable. Using stone hammers and sharp, pointed engraving tools, artists would have spent countless days, perhaps even seasons, patiently pecking away at the incredibly hard igneous rock of the Pilbara, a testament to the immense cultural importance of the task. Who or what do these colossal faces represent? The prevailing theories point towards the realm of the ancestral and the divine. Many researchers and Aboriginal knowledge holders believe they are portraits of powerful creation beings from the dreaming. In this interpretation, each face is a specific, named ancestor who shaped the local landscape, established tribal law, and whose spirit continues to reside within the country. They are not mere representations, they are a permanent physical manifestation of that being's presence, a sacred site where their power is most acutely felt. Another compelling idea is that they depict important, deified totemic ancestors. For a clan whose totem was, for example, the rain or the sun, carving a giant face of that ancestral entity into the rock was a way of anchoring its life-giving power to a specific place, ensuring its continued favor and presence for the people. The cultural stories surrounding these figures, passed down through generations of the Ngaluma and other Pilbara peoples, add rich layers of meaning to the stone. Some sites are linked to specific narratives of creation. One story might tell of an ancestral being who, after finishing the work of shaping the rivers and mountains, laid down to rest and transformed into the rock, their face forever looking up at the sky. Another might recount a great conflict between two ancestral beings, where the victor's face was carved into the cliff to mark his territory and serve as a warning to others. These are not simple folktales, they are the legal and historical documents of the culture, explaining the origin of every geographical feature and governing the social and spiritual responsibilities of the people connected to that place. The giant face is the central character in that story, its permanent image on the landscape a constant reminder of the law and the consequences of breaking it. The technique used to create these enduring monuments reveals a sophisticated understanding of the rock itself. The artists would have sought out suitable rock surfaces, often choosing ones with a thicker, darker desert varnish that would provide a dramatic contrast once the lighter-colored rock beneath was exposed by pecking. The process was one of both force and delicate precision. A stone hammer would be used to strike a finer, pointed stone chisel, slowly bruising and fracturing the rock surface one small cupule at a time. For the deepest grooves, this process would be repeated over and over, gradually widening and deepening the lines that formed the nose, the eyes, and the brow. The final effect, especially when viewed at dawn or dusk when the low raking light casts deep shadows into the grooves, is one of breathtaking power and solemnity. These faces were made to last, to endure through the ages as eternal guardians of the stories, the people, and the land itself. Leaving the monumental guardian faces of the Pilbara behind, we journey to the northeastern tip of Queensland, to a region where the rock art transforms from solitary, powerful icons into sprawling, dynamic narratives. This is the Laura River Basin, a World Heritage-listed landscape of sandstone escarpments and lush rainforest, and home to some of the most complex and compositionally sophisticated rock art galleries in all of Australia. Here, on the ceilings and walls of the quartzite rock shelters, we don't find isolated figures or symbols. We find entire worlds painted in vivid ochre, bustling with life and ceremony. These are the ritual scenes of the Laura region, and they offer us an unparalleled, almost cinematic glimpse into the rich social and spiritual life of the people who created them, the ancestors of the modern-day Gwion people. The first thing that strikes you about these panels is their incredible sense of action and community. Unlike the static, symbolic art of the deserts, the Laura scenes are teeming with human figures, often dozens of them in a single composition, all captured in a state of purposeful activity. The artists utilized a distinctive style known as the Gwion style, characterized by stick-like, dynamic human forms that are full of motion. You see groups of figures arrayed in lines or circles, their bodies leaning and bending in unison. Some appear to be dancing, their limbs frozen mid-step in a rhythmic ceremony. Others are clearly engaged in ritualized combat, spears raised or boomerangs held aloft, their bodies tense with the drama of the moment. The scenes are so vivid and detailed that you can almost hear the rhythm of the clapsticks, the drone of the didgeridoo, and the chanting of the participants, feeling the dust rise from the dancing feet. This art doesn't just show us people, it shows us people together, participating in the events that bound their community. These elaborate tableaus are far more than simple records of a good party. They are intricate blueprints of a highly structured society. The way the figures are arranged and depicted reveals a great deal about social hierarchies and roles. In many scenes, certain individuals are clearly set apart. They might be larger than the other figures, placed centrally within the composition, or adorned with elaborate regalia like towering headdresses, armbands, and aprons. These are likely the elders, the ceremony leaders, or the ritual specialists, the individuals who held the knowledge and authority to conduct these important events. Their prominent depiction underscores their status and the respect they commanded. Meanwhile, other figures might be shown in specific, repetitive poses or actions, perhaps indicating initiates undergoing a rite of passage or performers playing a particular role in the ceremony. The art acts as a powerful visual testament to a complex social order where everyone had a defined place and purpose within the communal whole. At their heart, these ritual scenes served as the primary mechanism for the transmission of essential cultural knowledge from one generation to the next. In a society without written language, these painted galleries functioned as the ultimate teaching tool. For a young person approaching initiation, being brought to one of these sites was a profound moment of learning. An elder could point to the figures and explain at the entire ceremony what each dance step meant, the significance of the body paint designs, the songs that were to be sung, and the sacred stories from the dreaming that the ritual reenacted. The art encoded the lore, the history, and the spiritual beliefs of the people in a permanent visual format. It ensured that complex traditions could be passed down with remarkable accuracy over hundreds, even thousands of years. A single panel could be a lesson in genealogy, cosmology, and ethics, all woven into the image of a dance. The most profound knowledge embedded in these scenes often relates to the powerful Gwion spirits themselves, the ancestral beings for whom the region's art is named. Gwions are mischievous and often dangerous spirit beings that are said to inhabit the rocks and caves of the Laura area. They are frequently depicted in the art, often towering over the human figures, with exaggerated, powerful bodies and distinctive, often beak-like profiles. Their presence in a ritual scene signifies that the ceremony is not merely a social gathering but a direct engagement with the spiritual realm. The rituals were likely performed to appease these powerful spirits, to seek their favor, or to harness their power for the benefit of the community. The paintings, therefore, are not just pictures of a ceremony, they are a permanent record of a sacred pact between the people and the spirit world, a vital transaction necessary for maintaining the balance and well-being of all. To stand before these ancient, vibrant scenes is to understand that for the Gwion people, art was never separate from life or spirit. It was the essential thread that wove them all together into a continuous, living story. Venturing south from the vibrant, narrative-driven galleries of the Laura region, we descend onto a vast, flat expanse that feels like another planet entirely, the Nullarbor Plain. Its name says it all, derived from the Latin for no trees. This is a stark, limestone-cast landscape, a seemingly endless flatness under an immense dome of sky. But the true mystery of the Nullarbor isn't on its surface. It's hidden beneath it in a labyrinth of deep, dark caves and sinkholes. And within these subterranean chambers, we find an art form that is the absolute opposite of the dynamic human scenes we've just left behind, the mysterious, enigmatic grid patterns. These are not figurative artworks. You will not find kangaroos, ancestral beings, or ritual dancers here. Instead, the cave walls are adorned with a stark, minimalist language of lines and intersections. The most common motif is the grid, a series of vertical lines crossed by horizontal ones, creating a pattern of neat, often perfectly spaced squares or rectangles. Alongside these, you find fields of parallel lines, ladders, zigzags, and intricate mazes. The effect is hauntingly abstract. It feels mathematical, deliberate, and utterly unlike any other rock art tradition on the continent. This is art stripped down to its most basic geometric elements, a cryptic code left behind by people who navigated one of the most challenging and featureless environments on Earth. Theories about their purpose are as fascinating as the patterns themselves, and each one offers a different lens through which to view the minds of their creators. One of the most compelling ideas is that these grids functioned as a form of ancient cartography. The Nullarbor is a notoriously difficult place to navigate. Its flat, monotonous terrain offers few landmarks. A grid pattern could represent a map of the cavern systems themselves, a way to chart the dangerous sinkholes, tunnels, and water sources hidden below the plain. Each square might signify a specific cave, a waterhole, or a day's journey, creating a spatial memory aid for survival. Alternatively, the grids could map the sky above. Some researchers suggest these patterns might represent star constellations, serving as a celestial guide for tracking seasonal changes and navigating the featureless landscape at night. Another compelling theory moves from geography to mathematics, proposing that these patterns are a tangible record of a counting system. The precise, repetitive nature of the grids suggests a methodical recording of quantities. They could be tallies of people in a group, numbers of animals hunted, or records of resources stored. In this sense, the cave walls become a vast stone ledger. The different sizes and complexities of the grids might indicate different quantities or types of items being counted. This transforms the art from a map into an economic document, a glimpse into the practical administration of a society living on the edge. A third perspective delves into the symbolic and spiritual. The repetitive, ordered nature of the patterns could represent a concept of the cosmos, a symbolic representation of the interconnectedness of all things: the land, the sky, the people, and the ancestral realm. The labyrinthine designs might symbolize spiritual journeys or pathways to the underworld, a theme common in many ancient cultures. The act of creating such an ordered pattern in the chaotic, dark environment of a cave could have been a ritual in itself, an attempt to impose human meaning and structure onto the unknown, to create a sacred, geometric sanctuary deep within the earth. The fundamental reason these magnificent puzzles remain so stubbornly unsolved, however, is a profound historical tragedy: the lack of continuous oral traditions from this specific area. The Nullarbor Plain was hit catastrophically hard by European colonization. The diseases, displacement, and violence that followed disrupted and, in many cases, completely severed the unbroken line of knowledge that had been passed down for thousands of generations. The specific cultural groups who created these grids and who held the keys to their meaning were dispersed or lost before their knowledge could be systematically recorded by anthropologists. Unlike the Quincan people of Laura or the Bininj of Arnhem Land, there are no elders today who can point to a Nullarbor grid and say, "This is the story of my ancestor." We are left with the silent marks on the wall, devoid of the living voice that could explain them. This silence is the greatest mystery of all, a permanent gap in our understanding that makes these geometric wonders some of the most poignant and unresolved enigmas in the entire Australian outback. While the haunting thylacine engravings of Murujuga offer a glimpse into the mainland's ancient past, the story of this enigmatic predator continues further south in the island state of Tasmania. Here, the rock art takes on a different, more immediate character. In the deep, sheltered sandstone caves of Tasmania's southwest wilderness, we find some of the most recent and most naturalistic depictions of the thylacine created by the Palawa people. These paintings feel strikingly fresh, almost as if the artist has just stepped away. The thylacines are often shown in their distinctive stripes carefully rendered, their stiff tails and powerful jaws captured with an observant eye. This isn't the art of a people documenting a long-vanished creature. This is the art of a people living alongside a contemporary predator, a powerful and respected part of their everyday world. The significance of these Tasmanian depictions is immense, acting as a crucial bridge between paleontology, archaeology, and recent history. We know from fossil evidence that thylacines went extinct on the Australian mainland around 3,000 years ago. The mainland rock art, like that at Murujuga, provides a vital confirmation of this timeline, as any detailed depiction of the animal must have been created while it was still present. The Tasmanian art, however, belongs to a much more recent period, created right up until the European colonization of the island in the 19th century. This creates a powerful chronological framework. The mainland art is ancient, a record of a lost world. The Tasmanian art is historical, a portrait of a living animal that was tragically driven to extinction in the modern era. Together, they bookend the thylacine's long relationship with humans in Australia, stretching from deep prehistory into the 20th century. These artworks are far more than simple portraits. They are a window into the complex cultural relationship between the Palawa people and the thylacine. The animal was undoubtedly a competitor, a predator that would hunt the same small game as humans, but it was also a totem, a respected ancestor, and a being woven into the fabric of dreaming stories. Some art panels show thylacines in isolation, perhaps as a kind of homage or a representation of a specific clan's totemic ancestor. Others integrate them into larger scenes. The most significant and well-known example is found at a site often called the Thylacine Gallery, where a magnificent, life-sized painting of a thylacine is surrounded by hundreds of hand stencils. This powerful juxtaposition is deeply symbolic. It suggests a ceremony or a gathering place where the people affirmed their connection to this powerful animal, perhaps to ensure a successful hunt or to show respect for its spirit. The art signifies a relationship built not just on competition, but on a deep spiritual understanding and reverence. For modern science, these paintings are an invaluable biological record. They provide irrefutable evidence that the Tasmanian thylacine was the same species as the one that once roamed the mainland, confirming what fossils had suggested. The artists captured details that even museum specimens sometimes lack: the exact number and pattern of stripes on the back and tail, the posture of the animal at rest, the shape of its ears and eyes. This is first-hand, eyewitness documentation of the animal in its prime, before the pressures of farming and bounty hunting pushed it to the brink. In a tragic twist, these ancient galleries now serve as a memorial. The last known thylacine, named Benjamin, died in captivity at the Hobart Zoo in 1936. The vibrant, confident images left on the cave walls stand in stark contrast to the sad, grainy black and white film footage of Benjamin pacing his concrete enclosure. The art endures as a testament to what was lost, a vibrant and powerful echo of a creature that still captures the world's imagination and symbolizes the fragility of our natural world. Leaving the stark geometry of the Nullarbor grids behind, we travel to a landscape that feels like the very spine of South Australia, the rugged, ancient folds of the Flinders Ranges. Here, amidst the dramatic gorges and sun-bleached ridges, the rock art introduces us to a captivating cast of characters, the anthropomorphic figures. These are not the stick-like dynamic forms of the north or the monumental guardian faces of the west. These are human-like figures that possess a unique and compelling presence, often adorned with elaborate headdresses, holding intricate tools and frozen in postures that seem to tell a story all their own. They are the enigmatic protagonists of the Flinders Ranges galleries, offering a deeply personal window into the lives and beliefs of the Adnyamathanha people, the traditional custodians of this remarkable country. What immediately captures your attention is the sheer theatricality of these figures. They are frequently depicted with astonishingly detailed and ornate headdresses. Some appear to be wearing full headpieces made of feathers or leaves, radiating out from the head like a sunburst. Others sport what look like intricate hairstyles, perhaps braids or buns adorned with ornaments, while some figures are shown with lines or patterns covering their faces, suggesting elaborate ceremonial body paint. In their hands, they often carry objects: boomerangs, digging sticks, spears, or what appear to be ritual paraphernalia that is harder to identify. Their bodies are typically solid and full-bodied, painted in rich red ochre, and they are often shown in active poses, dancing, hunting, or interacting with other figures and animals in a complex narrative scene. This level of detail suggests these are not generic symbols, but specific portraits of individuals engaged in specific, important acts. This powerful visual language points directly to a rich tradition of ritual performance and storytelling. Many researchers believe these painted panels are not merely illustrations of a story. They are theatrical scripts and stage directions for a story. The Adnyamathanha culture has a deeply ingrained performance tradition, with song, dance, and ceremony being central to the passing on of knowledge. It is highly probable that these art sites served as the sacred backdrop for these rituals. An elder could use the paintings as a guide, pointing to each figure to direct the performers, when to enter, what dance moves to execute, what props to carry. A figure painted with a raised arm and a boomerang might represent the exact moment in a dance where that action is performed. The art, therefore, becomes a permanent, immutable record of an ephemeral performance, ensuring that the precise movements and meanings of a ceremony are preserved with perfect fidelity for future generations, a vital tool for cultural continuity in an oral tradition. The variations in style across the Flinders Ranges add another layer of intrigue to these human figures. As you move through different valleys and past different rock shelters, you begin to notice subtle but distinct differences in how the figures are rendered. Some are more naturalistic with carefully defined anatomical features. Others are more abstract or geometric. The types of headdresses and tools can vary from site to site. This stylistic diversity is a powerful clue, hinting not at a single monolithic culture, but at the presence of different family groups or clans, each with their own slightly distinct artistic traditions and local interpretations of shared stories. Over deep time, these variations also suggest a long and dynamic history of cultural evolution. The older figures, often found buried under layers of more recent paintings, might exhibit a different aesthetic or technique than those painted on top, telling a story of changing fashions, influences, and perhaps even the arrival of new ideas or groups into the region over thousands of years. For the Adnyamathanha people today, these figures are far more than archaeological curiosities. They are a direct connection to their Yura Muda, their dreaming. Many of the specific figures can be identified with named ancestors who traveled through the ranges, shaping the landscape and establishing the laws of the people. A particular figure with a unique headdress might be the rainbow serpent ancestor, Akara, or a celebrated hunter from the dreaming. The stories associated with these paintings are still told, explaining how a certain gorge was formed or why a particular animal behaves the way it does. This living knowledge transforms the art from a static image into a vibrant chapter of an ongoing saga. The anthropomorphic figures of the Flinders Ranges stand as eternal participants in the ceremony of their own history, their painted forms forever dancing, hunting, and storytelling on the rock walls, ensuring the memory of their creator's world remains alive and powerful. Flowing southeast from the arid interior, we now follow the lifeblood of the continent, the vast Murray-Darling River system. This sprawling network of waterways carves a fertile green ribbon through otherwise dry land, and for the countless generations of Aboriginal peoples who have lived along its banks, it was the absolute center of their world. The rock art found here is a profound reflection of that deep, life-sustaining connection to water. Unlike the art of the deserts or the tropics, the galleries along the Murray-Darling are an aquatic archive, teeming with images of fish, turtles, waterbirds, and powerful spiritual beings that reside beneath the surface. This art doesn't just depict life, it celebrates the very element that makes it all possible. The subjects of these riverine galleries read like a field guide to the local ecosystem. You'll find beautifully detailed engravings of Murray cod, their distinctive broad bodies and large mouths carved with an accuracy that speaks of intimate familiarity. There are depictions of freshwater crayfish, their delicate antennae and segmented tails carefully rendered. Long-necked turtles seem to swim across rock platforms while flocks of ducks and swans take flight. This focus on aquatic life underscores a simple, vital truth: the river was the ultimate provider. These images are a testament to a sophisticated understanding of river ecology, marking seasonal breeding cycles, migration patterns, and prime fishing spots. They were a way of encoding essential survival knowledge into the landscape itself, ensuring that the next generation would know where and when to find sustenance. Beyond the practical, this art delves into the deeply spiritual. The river was not just a resource, it was a living, spiritual entity. Many of the most powerful images are of water spirits, ancestral beings known by names like Ngurundjeri to the Ngarrindjeri people further downstream. These beings are often depicted as giant, serpentine creatures, similar to the rainbow serpent but specifically associated with the river's flow. They were believed to be the creators of the Murray itself, having carved its path during the dreaming, and they continued to control its health and abundance. An image of a water spirit near a bend in the river might mark a particularly deep and dangerous waterhole where it was said to reside, serving as both a spiritual landmark and a very real warning to tread carefully and with respect. Artworks in these locations were often part of rituals to appease these spirits, to ensure the rivers continued to flow and the fish populations remained plentiful. The creation of this art required remarkable adaptability as the artists worked in a landscape defined by seasonal flooding. While some artwork was placed high on permanent sandstone cliffs, a great deal of it was executed on granite outcrops and rock platforms that are periodically submerged by floodwaters. This presented a unique challenge. The artists developed incredibly resilient techniques to ensure their work would survive these inundations. The most common method was pecking and abrading, where designs were hammered into the hard rock using stone tools and then smoothed to create deep, clear grooves. These engraved lines, often several centimeters deep, were resistant to the scouring action of water and silt. Unlike paintings that could be washed away, these engravings would simply be covered during a flood and then revealed again as the waters receded, seemingly reborn from the river itself. This cyclical process of submersion and revelation may have even added to their spiritual significance, seen as a regular blessing or renewal by the water spirits. Perhaps one of the most poignant aspects of this river art is how it inadvertently documents environmental change over millennia. The Murray-Darling Basin has not been static. It has experienced dramatic shifts in climate, from periods of great abundance to times of severe drought. The rock art acts as a long-term environmental record. In some regions, you find detailed depictions of certain species of fish or waterbirds that are no longer found in that part of the river today, their range having shifted due to changing rainfall patterns or the construction of modern barriers. This provides scientists with invaluable data about historical ecosystems and the impacts of long-term climate variability. Furthermore, the presence of certain motifs can indicate past water levels. A beautifully engraved Murray cod located high on a rock face far from the current riverbank silently tells a story of a time when the river ran much higher and wider, painting a picture of a very different ancient world. These artworks are therefore not just cultural treasures, they are crucial archives of ecological history, offering lessons from the past that are more relevant than ever in our current era of environmental uncertainty. From the life-giving rivers of the Murray Darling, we now turn our gaze inward to the immense sun-drenched heart of the continent, the Great Western Deserts. Here in the stark, beautiful emptiness of the Gibson and Great Sandy Deserts, the rock art takes on a form that is both simple and deeply mysterious. Across vast rock platforms and secluded shelters, we find a language of circles, perfect rings, spirals that seem to draw the eye inward, and intricate concentric designs that look like ancient stony tree rings. These are not the figurative animals or human forms we've seen elsewhere. This is an art of pure geometry, a silent, symbolic code left behind by the Pintupi and other desert peoples, a code whose full meaning remains one of the Outback's most compelling puzzles. The sheer ubiquity of these circular motifs is the first clue to their importance. They are everywhere in the desert, repeated across thousands of square kilometers on rock surfaces, and even drawn in the sand during ceremonies. Their design is often meticulous. A typical motif might consist of a central dot, surrounded by a series of perfectly spaced concentric circles, all connected by a single meandering line that winds its way out from the center or links one set of circles to another. To the untrained eye, they might appear abstract or decorative, but in a culture where every mark had meaning and survival depended on the precise transmission of knowledge, such widespread and carefully executed patterns were undoubtedly loaded with significance. They were a visual language, and we are still struggling to learn its grammar. One of the most compelling interpretations of these designs is that they functioned as a sophisticated form of map. The Australian desert is a challenging, often featureless place to navigate. The concentric circles could represent vital waterholes or soaks, the absolute lifelines of the desert. The connecting lines between them would then chart the safe travel routes or songlines that link these precious resources. A complex panel of circles might not be random art. It could be a detailed topographic map encoding the location of water, food sources, and ceremonial grounds across hundreds of kilometers. For the initiated, a glance at a specific set of circles could reveal the entire journey to a distant site. The number of circles indicating the number of days' travel, and the connecting lines showing the direction. This transforms the art from decoration into a critical survival tool, an ancient GPS etched in stone. Beyond the practical, these circles almost certainly held profound sacred meaning. In the desert Tijukurpa, or dreaming, many creation stories involve ancestral beings traveling across the land and forming waterholes where they stop to rest. A concentric circle design could symbolize such a site, representing not just the physical waterhole but the spiritual presence of the ancestor who created it. The rings might illustrate the ripples made when the ancestor entered the water, or they could represent layers of spiritual energy emanating from a sacred point. In this context, the art becomes a portal to the dreaming, a focal point for ceremony and story. The act of painting or repainting these circles was itself a ritual act, a way of maintaining the connection to the ancestor and ensuring the continued flow of spiritual and literal water from the site. The meandering lines that frequently connect these circles add another layer of narrative depth. These are often explained as the pathways of the ancestral beings themselves, charting their journeys across the country during the creation period. A single, continuous line winding between multiple sets of circles could tell the entire story of a specific ancestor, where they came from, where they traveled, and what they created along the way. This means a rock art panel is not a collection of separate images. It is a single, continuous storyboard, a graphic novel from the dreaming. To read it properly requires knowing the songlines that accompany it, the songs that describe the journey in detail. The art and the song are inseparable partners. One provides the visual map, the other the spoken instructions, together guiding people both physically and spiritually across their country. This leads us to the central, frustrating challenge of interpreting these magnificent puzzles, the catastrophic gap in cultural context. The Pintupi people were among the last in Australia to make contact with European society, with some family groups living traditionally in the desert until the 1980s. However, the displacement of people from their ancestral lands throughout the 20th century severed the direct line of knowledge for many specific art sites. While elders hold immense knowledge of the Tijucurpa broadly, the precise meaning of a particular set of circles on a specific rock outcrop may be known only to the descendants of the exact family group who lived there and were its traditional custodians. Without that specific, localized knowledge, we are often left with educated guesses. We can understand the general symbolism of circles, but the specific story behind a unique configuration may be lost forever, a silent story waiting for a reader who never comes. This immense challenge makes the work of contemporary indigenous communities and anthropologists all the more vital. The key to unlocking these patterns does not lie in guesswork, it lies in careful collaboration and cross-referencing. Researchers painstakingly document the exact placement and relationship of motifs, while elders share the overarching stories of the ancestors connected to that area. Sometimes a breakthrough occurs when an elder, upon seeing a photograph of a site, can immediately identify the ancestor represented by a particular circle and sing the song associated with it. In this way, fragment by fragment, the language is being slowly relearned. Each deciphered circle is a triumph, reconnecting a people to a specific part of their history and ensuring that these enigmatic designs continue to fulfill their ancient purpose, to guide, to teach, and to connect the people to the timeless stories of their land. Now our journey takes us deep into the lush, tropical world of the top end, to the very heart of Kakadu National Park. Here, amidst the thunderous waterfalls and vibrant wetlands, the rock art reveals a dimension of the dreaming that is both mesmerizing and profoundly complex. We encounter figures that defy simple categorization, beings that are neither fully human nor entirely animal, but a powerful fusion of both. These are the composite beings, and they represent one of the most imaginative and spiritually significant concepts in all of Aboriginal rock art. Imagine a figure with the head of a crocodile and the body of a man, or a human form adorned with the tail of a stingray and the wings of a goose. These are not monsters from a horror story. They are sacred ancestors, embodiments of a world view where the boundaries between species are fluid and the natural and spiritual worlds are inextricably woven together. The mythological origins of these figures lie in the very foundation of the Dreamtime, known as the Nganga to the Bininj people of Kakadu. During this epoch of creation, the ancestral beings were not confined to a single form. They possessed the ability to shape-shift, to move between human and animal states as they journeyed across the land, creating its features and establishing the laws of society. A creator ancestor might begin a journey in human form, but then transform into a kangaroo to escape a foe, or take on the attributes of a fish to swim up a newly formed river. The composite beings depicted on the rock shelters are often frozen moments from these epic narratives, capturing an ancestor in a state of transition or embodying the full totality of their transformative power. They are not aberrations, they are perfect expressions of a reality where all life shares a common ancestral source and is therefore connected in its most fundamental essence. This artistic tradition reveals a breathtakingly holistic understanding of the world. For the Bininj people, a human did not simply have a totemic connection to an animal, they shared an identity with it. A person whose totem was the long-necked turtle believed they were descended from the same ancestral turtle being. Therefore, depicting a figure that was part human, part turtle was a literal and truthful representation of that shared ancestry. It was a way of visualizing the belief that the same life force, the same spiritual essence, animates all living things. This world view completely dissolves the hierarchy between humans and animals that characterizes Western thought. In this system, humans are not above nature, they are a part of it, kin to the crocodile and the cockatoo, all subject to the same ancient laws and all stemming from the same sacred origins. The composite being is the ultimate symbol of this kinship, a reminder that to harm the natural world is to harm a part of oneself. The roles these beings play in Dreamtime stories are as varied as their forms, but they often serve as moral and ethical guides. The saga of Namakan, the Lightning Man, is a powerful example. He is a foundational ancestor for the Kunjimi people of central Kakadu, and he is always depicted as a terrifyingly powerful composite being. His body is human, but his elbows and knees are fitted with stone axes, which he strikes together to create the lightning and thunder of the monsoon storms. His head is often surrounded by a halo of electrical arcs. The story of Namakan is not just an explanation for a natural phenomenon. It is a story about responsibility, power, and consequence. His actions bring the life-giving rains that replenish the land, but they also bring the danger of fires and floods. He teaches that powerful forces must be respected and that creation and destruction are two sides of the same coin. To see his image on a rock shelter is to be reminded of the immense, unpredictable power of nature and the importance of living in balance with it. Other composite beings act as teachers of specific skills and cultural practices. A figure with the head of a sugarbag bee and the body of a man might be the ancestor who first taught people how to find wild honey. A being that is part woman, part yam could be the embodiment of the ancestral spirit of that plant, who revealed the secrets of where to find it and how to harvest it sustainably. In this way, the art functions as a prehistoric instruction manual, encoding vital survival knowledge within a sacred narrative. The composite form ensures that the knowledge is never seen as a purely human invention. It is always a gift from the ancestral realm, a sacred trust given by the species itself to its human relatives. This fostered a relationship of deep gratitude and respect, ensuring that resources were never taken for granted but were always acknowledged as a sacred exchange between kin. Ultimately, the enduring power of these images lies in their ability to make the spiritual tangible. The dreaming is not an abstract concept, it is the living law of the land present in every rock, tree, and animal. By giving the ancestral beings a form, especially a form that blends the familiar human with the powerful animal, the artists created a direct visual bridge to that sacred reality. A composite being painted on a rock shelter is not a mere representation of a story. It is a focal point where the power of that ancestor is concentrated. It is a place where the Bininj people can go to connect with that ancestor, to sing the songs of its journey, and to feel its ongoing presence in the world. These sites are portals, and the composite beings are the guardians, forever reminding us that the world is far more mysterious and interconnected than it may appear. A place where the human and the animal, the natural and the supernatural, are forever joined in a single, sacred dance of creation. Imagine a single rock shelter wall not as a blank canvas, but as a living, breathing history book whose pages have been written and rewritten over thousands of years. This is the reality at many sites across Arnhem Land and beyond, where ancient artists return to the same sacred panels generation after generation, each adding their own chapter directly on top of the last. The result is a spectacular archaeological puzzle known as a palimpsest, a complex overlay of artistic styles, where the graceful, dynamic figures of one era are partially obscured by the bold X-ray art of another, and both are crossed by the fine lines of later artists. These sites are not chaotic, They are meticulously layered archives, and deciphering their sequence is like unlocking a time capsule that holds the entire story of human creativity and cultural change in this land. Archaeologists use the principle of superimposition as their primary key to this puzzle. It's a simple but powerful concept. The artwork on the bottom layer must be older than the art painted over the top of it. By carefully mapping which figures lie beneath others, researchers can begin to construct a relative chronology, building a sequence of artistic styles from oldest to most recent without needing to know their exact dates. This painstaking work involves photographing the panels under different lighting conditions, sometimes using advanced digital enhancement software to see through the upper layers and distinguish the faint outlines of the earliest works. It's a delicate forensic process, a visual excavation that peels back the centuries without ever touching the fragile surface, revealing the order in which these different artistic languages were spoken. This layered sequence tells a profound story of cultural evolution. In Arnhem Land, for instance, the deepest, most ancient layers often belong to the dynamic figures, those elegant, active stick figures from a time stretching back thousands of years. They showcase a focus on movement and hunting. Layered directly over them, we often find the later and more spiritually complex X-ray style, with its detailed anatomical illustrations. This isn't just a change in fashion, it's a monumental shift in worldview. The overlay suggests an evolution from an art that captured the external action of life to one that sought to reveal its internal, sacred essence. It marks a move from depicting how beings behave to exploring what they truly were, their spirit, their life force, and their connection to the dreaming. Each new layer doesn't erase the past, it dialogues with it, building upon older traditions while introducing new beliefs and technologies. The very pigments and techniques used provide another layer of clues for unraveling this timeline. Early artists often used mineral-based ochres that could withstand the millennia. By analyzing the chemical composition of these pigments, scientists can sometimes trace them to specific quarries that were exploited at known periods. Furthermore, the tools and methods evolved. The oldest art might be applied with a finger or a simple brush, while later works show evidence of more sophisticated tools, like fine-haired brushes that allowed for the intricate cross-hatching seen in some figures. Even the act of repainting itself is significant. In some cases, a later artist didn't just paint over an older figure, they carefully repainted within its faded lines, a powerful act of cultural renewal that shows a deep reverence for the ancestral image and a desire to keep its power alive for a new generation. Perhaps the most captivating aspect of these palimpsests is the story of encounter and change they sometimes reveal. There are rare and poignant sites where the sequence of layers captures a moment of profound cultural collision. In a few shelters, the very latest paintings include depictions of first-contact subjects sailing ships with tall masts, figures holding guns, or men in European dress wearing wide-brimmed hats. These images are often painted in a hybrid style, using traditional ochres and methods to depict utterly foreign concepts. Their position at the very top of the artistic sequence is historically devastating. They represent the final chapter of artistic expression before the devastating disruptions of colonization silenced this ancient, continuous tradition of painting at many sites. They are a silent, powerful testament to a world suddenly and irrevocably changed, the last marks made by artists documenting the arrival of a new and uncertain era, forever overlaying the stories of the world that came before. While the thylacine engravings offer a glimpse into a relatively recent extinction, the rock art of the Australian Outback holds an even more astonishing secret, rare and controversial depictions of true prehistoric giants, creatures that vanished from the earth not thousands but tens of thousands of years ago. In a handful of remote sites, we find images that seem to defy time itself, portraits of the Megafauna, the colossal animals that roamed the continent during the Pleistocene epoch. These are not just paintings of large animals, They are potential eyewitness accounts of a lost world, showing creatures like geniones, a 2-meter-tall flightless bird, and Diprotodon, a rhinoceros-sized marsupial that looked like a gargantuan wombat. The existence of these artworks is nothing short of revolutionary, as they provide the most compelling visual evidence that the first Australians not only coexisted with these monsters but documented them in stunning detail. The significance of these depictions cannot be overstated. For decades, a fierce scientific debate has raged about the timing of the megafauna's extinction and the role, if any, that humans played in it. Did these giant species die out due to climate change before humans ever arrived on the continent? Or did they meet their end shortly after due to hunting and habitat alteration by people? The fossil record provides bones and dates, but it often struggles to definitively prove a direct overlap. A painting of a geniones, however, changes the entire conversation. It suggests that an artist stood before the living, breathing animal and captured its likeness. This isn't inferred evidence, it's a potential first-hand account, a photograph from deep time that places humans and megafauna together in the same landscape. It transforms the extinction from an abstract event into a historical one, something witnessed and recorded by people. One of the most famous and hotly debated examples is a painting from Arnhem Land known as the Bradshaw Figure. This stunning image shows a massive bird-like creature with a thick, powerful neck, a beaked head, and incredibly robust legs. It lacks the classic wings of an emu or cassowary and is depicted with a prominent crop or pouch under its throat. To many researchers, this is a perfect match for geniones, a giant bird known from fossils to have lived in the region. The artist has even captured its posture and hefty build with an accuracy that seems to go beyond guesswork or myth. If this identification is correct, it would mean that this species survived for tens of thousands of years longer than the fossil record currently suggests, coexisting with humans for a significant period. Similarly, there are paintings that appear to show the Diprotodon, the largest marsupial ever to have lived. These images depict a large, heavy-bodied, quadrupedal animal with a barrel-shaped torso and a head that seems too small for its body characteristics that align perfectly with the fossil skeletons we have. Seeing such a creature depicted alongside human figures, sometimes even with hunters nearby, paints a dramatic picture of the challenges and wonders of life in ancient Australia. It suggests that the first Australians lived in a world that was both terrifying and magnificent, sharing the landscape with animals that would dwarf anything found on the continent today. These artworks force us to reimagine the outback not as an empty desert, but as a thriving Serengeti-like ecosystem teeming with giants. However, the interpretation of these images is fraught with immense difficulty and scholarly debate. Skeptics argue that without an unambiguous, labeled portrait, we can never be 100% certain. Could the geniones painting instead be a stylized representation of an emu or cassowary, perhaps shown in a ritual context with symbolic additions? Could the Diprotodon be a representation of a spirit being rather than a literal animal? Aboriginal rock art is deeply symbolic, and not every figure is meant to be a zoological textbook illustration. The artists may have been combining the physical attributes of several animals to create a composite ancestral being, making definitive identifications incredibly risky. The greatest challenge, as with all rock art, is obtaining a reliable date. The usual methods face extreme difficulties here. If the paint contains no organic binder for radiocarbon dating, and if the art is not covered by a datable sediment layer, we are left with stylistic comparisons and circumstantial evidence. Some attempts have been made to date associated wasp nests that have built over the top of the paintings, but even this method has its limitations and critics. Until a direct, undisputed date can be pulled from the pigment of a megafauna depiction itself, the debate will continue. These rare and magnificent paintings exist in a tantalizing limbo, potentially the oldest human artwork on the planet, a window onto a world of giants, and yet a puzzle that continues to challenge our understanding of deep time and the incredible journey of Australia's first peoples. Our exploration of the Outback's rock art has taken us from ancient megafauna to celestial calendars, but now we must turn to a dimension of this story that exists largely out of public view, the secret sacred sites. These are places of profound spiritual power, where the most significant and sensitive artworks are located, and where access is strictly restricted to initiated members of the indigenous communities who are their custodians. This isn't a matter of secrecy for its own sake. It is a fundamental aspect of cultural law and spiritual protection. The art in these places is not created for an outside audience. It is part of a living, breathing religious tradition, and its power is considered so potent that its inappropriate exposure could have serious cultural consequences, even endangering those who are not prepared to handle such sacred knowledge. The ethical considerations surrounding these sites represent one of the most complex challenges in modern archaeology and anthropology. For generations, Western researchers often felt entitled to document, analyze, and publish everything they found, treating indigenous cultural heritage as a global academic resource. This approach caused immense harm, violating spiritual protocols and stripping communities of control over their own most treasured possessions. Today, a vital ethical shift is underway, moving from a model of entitlement to one of partnership and permission. This means that research on such sites is only conducted with the explicit invitation and guidance of the traditional owners. It often involves collaborative projects where elders dictate what can be studied, how it can be photographed, and what findings can be publicly shared. The primary question is no longer, what can we learn from this site, but rather, how can we help you protect and understand it according to your laws? The spiritual importance of this guarded art cannot be overstated. While the art we've seen in open galleries often tells stories of creation and daily life, the art in the most sacred sites frequently deals with the ultimate mysteries of existence, the innermost secrets of the dreaming, the rituals of death and rebirth, and the precise ceremonies for interacting with the most powerful ancestral beings. These images are not simply representations. In the worldview of the custodians, they are the dwelling place of the spirit itself. To see a particular image without the proper initiation is not just a cultural faux pas. It is akin to walking unannounced into the most holy sanctum of a cathedral during a private prayer. It is a violation of a sacred space that can dilute the power of the site and disrupt the spiritual balance it maintains. Preservation, therefore, takes on a completely different meaning in this context. While archaeologists might focus on physical conservation, protecting pigments from sun and rain, the primary method of preservation for secret sacred art is through oral tradition and active community stewardship. The knowledge of these places, the stories they hold, and the correct rituals associated with them are passed down through generations within the strict confines of the initiated. Elders teach the next generation not just the stories, but the songs, the dances, and the laws that give the art its meaning and power. This living transmission is what truly keeps the art alive. The physical painting might fade over centuries, but as long as the knowledge is held and practiced by the people, its essence remains vibrant and powerful. This stewardship also involves physical protection, but on the community's own terms. Custodians actively manage these sites, often keeping their locations undisclosed to prevent accidental or intentional damage. They perform ceremonies to renew the spiritual energy of the place, which can sometimes include the careful repainting of figures, an act of worship that also happens to maintain the visual integrity of the art. The decision to repaint or not is a deeply cultural one. From a Western conservation perspective, repainting an ancient figure might be seen as destroying its archaeological value. But from an indigenous perspective, allowing a sacred image to fade through neglect is a far greater failure. It is allowing a connection to the ancestral world to wither and die. The continuous renewal is the preservation. Ultimately, the existence of these restricted sites is a powerful reminder that not all knowledge is meant to be universal. In our digital age, where the impulse is to document and share everything, the guarded sacred sites stand as a testament to the value of mystery, respect, and cultural boundaries. They teach us that the greatest respect we can offer is sometimes to simply acknowledge that some doors are not meant for us to open, and that the deepest mysteries of a culture are not puzzles to be solved by outsiders, but truths to be cherished and protected by those who hold them in trust. This acceptance is the highest form of appreciation, allowing these ancient traditions to continue their unbroken journey through time, exactly as they were intended. From the ethereal, dancing Gwion Gwion figures of the Kimberley to the monumental, watchful faces of the Pilbara, from the celestial calendars of the deserts to the vibrant, story-filled ritual scenes of the Laura Basin, our journey across 25 of Australia's most puzzling rock art sites has been nothing short of an epic voyage through deep time. We've stood before portraits of long-extinct giants and felt the silent power of the Wandjina's gaze. We've traced the lines of ancient maps and decoded the symbolic language of circles and grids, each site a unique piece of an immense and intricate puzzle left by the world's oldest continuous cultures. Together, these sites form a breathtaking mosaic, a testament to an unbroken creative and spiritual tradition that stretches back over 40,000 years, reminding us that human curiosity, the drive to create, and the need to connect with the cosmos are as ancient as the red earth itself. The true mystery of these places lies not in their obscurity, but in their profound depth. They are not merely art, they are libraries of ecological knowledge, records of astronomical observations, and chapters of sacred lore. They are the original social media, connecting communities across vast distances through a shared symbolic language. They are deeds of ownership, scientific textbooks, and spiritual portals all at once. To understand them is to begin to understand a world where every being, human, animal, plant, and spirit is interconnected, where the past is not a distant memory but a living, breathing force that shapes the present. This collective cultural depth challenges us to expand our definition of history and to acknowledge the immense intellectual and artistic achievements of Indigenous Australians, whose legacy is embedded in the very rock of the continent. This priceless inheritance now faces an uncertain future, and its preservation is a responsibility we all share. The threats are varied and relentless. Industrial pollution slowly erasing the masterpieces of Murujuga, urban development encroaching on the engraving sites of the Hawkesbury, and even the well-intentioned footsteps of tourists gradually wearing down ancient sacred grooves. Climate change, with its increasing frequency of bushfires and extreme weather, poses another layer of risk to these fragile galleries. Preserving them is not an academic exercise, it is an act of cultural justice and a vital investment in our collective human story. It requires a collaborative approach, one that prioritizes the guidance and knowledge of traditional custodians, supports ongoing research and conservation efforts, and fosters a global appreciation for these irreplaceable treasures. If this journey has inspired you to witness this magic for yourself, we encourage you to do so with the utmost respect. Seek out guided tours led by Indigenous rangers who can share the true stories behind the art. Follow all signage, stay on designated paths, and never, under any circumstances, touch the paintings or engravings. The natural oils on your hands can cause irreversible damage. Remember that you are a guest in a living landscape, one that is still deeply sacred to its traditional owners. We would love to hear which of these 25 sites captivated your imagination the most. Was it the powerful Wandjina, the enigmatic Bradshaw Figures, or the haunting thylacine? Share your thoughts and questions in the comments below. This conversation is just the beginning. The Australian Outback holds countless more mysteries waiting to be explored, and this is just one chapter in our ongoing series delving into history's greatest enigmas. If you enjoyed unraveling these ancient puzzles with us, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next adventure into the unknown. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. Keep wondering, keep exploring, and we'll see you in the next video.